باسم ربك الذي خلق.
Welcome to our journey into the spiritual depths of the Maanavi, a revered text penned by the esteemed Iranian poet Maulana. This masterpiece of Persian literature is not just a collection of verses, but a treasure trove of stories that delve into the human soul, exploring the nuances of faith, power, and deceit. Each tale is a labyrinth of spiritual teachings, guiding us towards a greater understanding of the divine and our place within the grand tapestry of existence. Today, we unravel one such narrative, a tale of a Jewish king, his deep-seated animosity towards Christianity, and the resilience of faith under persecution. So, buckle up as we traverse through the corridors of history, unearthing the layers of this compelling tale. Let's delve into the reign of the Jewish king, his attempts to eradicate Christianity, and the cunning plan of his minister. Their story, though shrouded in deceit and power struggles, ultimately unveils the true essence of faith. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a Jewish king waged war against Christians? In the era of Jesus Christ, an epic defined by prophethood, such a scenario unfolded. This was time when the teachings of Jesus were spreading like wildfire, and yet, paradoxically, a Jewish king harbored deep-seated animosity towards Christians. This king, a tyrant by all accounts, held sway over a vast kingdom. He was not just a ruler, but a man fueled by intolerance and prejudice. He saw the followers of not as fellow believers in the divine, but as threats to his reign. In his eyes, they were heretics, deserving of nothing less than death. The king's hostility towards Christians escalated, and he issued harsh decrees against them. He did not heed the unity of prophets. The commonality between the prophets Moses and Jesus was lost on him. Instead, he was driven by selfish desires, renouncing the Christian faith and decreeing death for its followers. Furthermore, he ordered their expulsion from his kingdom. Faced with this existential threat, the Christians no choice but to go underground with their faith. They retreated from public view, shrouding their religious practices in secrecy to avoid the king's wrath. Yet their faith was resilient. It persisted, unbowed in the face of relentless persecution. Flame of their devotion flickered in the dark, refusing to be, however, the king's minister, a cunning and crafty man, saw through their subterfuge. He shared the king's hatred for Christians and recognized their clandestine worship. He warned the king of the implications of their resilience, of their potential resurgence. The king, growing frustrated with his failed attempts to eradicate Christianity, turned to his minister for a solution. This minister, often compared to Satan for his deviousness, came up with a plan as drastic as it was deceitful. But that's a story for another time. For now, we leave you with this. Their faith, though hidden, was never extinguished. But the king's minister had a plan. This story is taken from the spiritual Masnavi book of Maulana Arif and Sa'ar, an Iranian spiritualist. The king's minister, a man as cunning as the serpent in the Garden of Eden, proposed a plan as audacious as it was deceitful. The minister, a master of manipulation, suggested an elaborate ruse intended to undermine the Christian faith from within. The minister's plan was to pose as a convert to Christianity. He would pretend to renounce his Jewish faith, publicly accept the teachings of Jesus Christ, and join the ranks of the persecuted. He would appear to be a victim of the king's cruel reign, thereby earning the trust and sympathy of the Christians he sought to destroy. The minister went to great lengths to make his deception believable. He attended secret Christian gatherings, learned their prayers, and adopted their customs. He even allowed himself to be publicly tortured for his newfound faith, a spectacle that won him the admiration of the Christian community. The minister's performance was so convincing that he was eventually appointed as a Christian minister, but the minister's true aim was not to lead, but to mislead. His position of authority gave him the power to sow seeds of discord among the Christians. He began to introduce subtle changes to their teachings, causing confusion and disagreement. He whispered lies into the ears of the faithful, manipulating them into questioning their beliefs and each other. Under the minister's influence, the Christians gradually began to turn against one another. Distorted interpretations of scripture led to heated debates, and before long the unity of the Christian community was shattered. They were so consumed by their internal conflicts that they failed to see the true enemy among them. The minister's plan was a success. He had infiltrated the Christian faith, gained their trust, and then used that trust to tear them apart. The king, watching from his throne, was pleased. His minister had achieved what he could not. the slow, steady erosion of the Christian faith from within. For 6 years, the minister played his part to perfection, fooling everyone with his grand deception. The minister, now revered as a Christian preacher, decided it was time to act on his true intentions. He set about creating a masterful plan designed to foster division and discord among the Christians. His first move was to pen 12 scrolls, each one a masterpiece of contradiction. Each scroll presented a different interpretation of Christian doctrine, deftly contrived to be convincing yet fundamentally at odds with the others. The minister's aim was to create confusion, to make each leader believe that his version of the doctrine was the true one. He carefully crafted these scrolls, poring over each word, each sentence, each paragraph, ensuring that they were persuasive, compelling, and utterly divisive. Once the scrolls were complete, the minister summoned the 12 leading Christians. Declaring them his successors, he presented each one with a unique scroll. As he handed over these scrolls, he looked into their eyes, saw their faith in him, and knew that his plan was set in motion. The minister's next step was the most audacious yet. He announced his desire for solitary worship and retired to a secluded cave. It was here that he staged his own death, a final act of deception designed to leave the Christian community leaderless and vulnerable. News of the minister's death spread like wildfire, causing a wave of grief to sweep across the Christian world. The minister had been a beacon of hope for many, and his loss was felt deeply. Little did they know that his death was merely the final act in a grand play of deceit. The minister's death left a void, and the seeds of discord he had planted began to sprout. The 12 leaders, each armed with a unique interpretation of the doctrine, began to argue over the true path of Christianity. The unity that once held the Christian community together started to unravel, and discord began to rise. This was the beginning of a period of great strife, a time when the Christian community was torn apart by internal conflict and disagreement. The minister's plan had been set in motion, and the effects would be felt for years to come. With the death of their beloved preacher, the Christian community was thrown into chaos. The 12 leaders, once bound by a shared faith, found themselves thrust into a power vacuum. Each possessed a scroll, a testament from the revered minister, but to their dismay, each scroll contained contrasting teachings. The unity that once defined them was shattered, replaced by confusion and dissent. The leaders, in their quest to uphold the minister's legacy, interpreted their scrolls with zealous conviction, believing their interpretation to be the true path to salvation. However, their convictions were as diverse as the scrolls they held. Some preached peace and tolerance, others advocated for stringent adherence to religious practices, and yet others championed a more militaristic approach to spreading their faith. This divergence in beliefs led to the formation of distinct factions within the Christian community. Each leader and their followers believed they were the true adherents of the minister's teachings, and as such, they viewed the others as deviants, straying from the path of righteousness. The once unified Christian community was fracturing, splitting into factions, each vying for dominance. The disagreement soon escalated to violent confrontations. The factions, once brethren under the same faith, now clashed in a bitter struggle for supremacy. The city that once echoed with prayers and hymns was now filled with the sounds of war cries and clashing swords. The blood of Christians stained the soil, a grim testament to the discord sown by the king's minister. The king, observing from his palace, witnessed the success of his minister's plan. The Christian community, which had once posed a threat to his rule, was now divided, embroiled in a war of its own making. The unity they once prided themselves on was now their downfall. They were no longer a united front against the king, instead they were their own worst enemy. The king's plan, executed through his minister, had achieved its desired outcome. The Christians, once a formidable force, were now a fragmented community. Their unity shattered, their strength depleted, all because of the seeds of discord sown by a single man's deception. As the Christian factions waged war amongst themselves, a new threat lurked in the shadows. The Jewish leaders, viewing the discord as an opportunity, began to infiltrate the warring factions. Their objective was not to restore peace, but to further deepen the divisions. In their pursuit of power and wealth, these leaders showed no hesitation in sacrificing their own people. They were not true Jews in spirit, but only carried the name, using it as a mask to further their sinister goals. They served not God but Satan, their actions driven by a desire to pull people away from the kingdom of God. They exploited the chaos within the Christian community, sowing seeds of discord among other religions and groups as well, including Islam, which they fragmented into 73 sects. Their actions delivered a significant blow to the Jewish people who sought the true path of God. Yet it is important to distinguish between these power-hungry leaders and the faithful Jewish servants who followed the path of God. God, in His infinite wisdom, has promised a place in the higher realms for all those who seek goodness, be they Muslims, Jews, or Christians, and other people who do good things to get closer to God. This tale of deception and discord, drawn from the spiritual teachings of Maulana Arif and Sa'ar, serves as a reminder of the dangers of allowing worldly desires to supersede spiritual ones. As the smoke of discord spread, obscuring the path of righteousness, there emerged a group of true servants from each religion, Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. They stood as beacons of light amidst the darkness, refusing to succumb to the deception and manipulation orchestrated by the power-hungry leaders. They believed not in the division of faith, but in the unity of God's kingdom. In Islam, these servants sought to restore the faith to its original undivided form, working tirelessly to unite the 73 sects. The faithful Jewish servants, too, were not silent. They rose against the so-called leaders who had tarnished the name of their faith, seeking to guide their people back to the true path of God. Meanwhile, within the Christian factions, voices of truth and unity began to resonate, challenging the war and chaos that had been pitched as the will of God. These servants knew that the essence of all religions is the same: love, peace, and service to God. They carried the heavy burden of truth, striving to enlighten their communities, not for power or wealth, but for the love of God and humanity. Their stories, drawn from the spiritual teachings of Maulana Arif and Sa'ar, serve as a testament to the power of faith and the indomitable human spirit. Remember, it is not the label of religion that defines a person but their actions. God's promise of life in the higher realms is not limited to any specific group. It is open to all who seek goodness, follow the path of righteousness, and strive to get closer to God. This is the true essence of faith, and these are the true servants of God. Welcome to